So hello, my friends, and welcome. It's nice to be with you again. We're here coming to you not from Berkeley Springs as we usually are, but from the Wasatch Mountains in Utah, Park City, Utah, here where we're out working on a book for a couple of days. And we're happy to have an opportunity to have an interview and talk to our friend Frank Jacob, who's coming to us from Germany. Hi, Frank. How are you?
Hi, John. Good to be here. Hello in
Yes.
Utah, from
Yeah.
Bavaria.
Well, it's nice to have you with us, and you're going to be with us again in November at Transition Talks. And so we thought we'd check in with you and find out what you've been thinking about a little bit between now and then. For our friends who are not familiar, Frank is a filmmaker and a marvelous kind of creative guy who has done a number of award-winning films and videos, and is really on the leading edge of trying to describe many aspects of this big change that's coming downstream. And so we had a great time when you were with us last year, and we're really very much looking forward to having you with us again.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to return and to continue the dialogue. And I think the intensity in the world is not letting up. So we have to keep people informed on what's really going on in the world and where it's going.
Well, we're running into perhaps you probably in retrospect you'll be able to look at this and say this is could be the most critical kind of 6 months in the history of certainly this country, because what you're setting up is any number of major kind of events that certainly no matter what happens send things in a whole new direction. You've got people like Cliff High and Martin Armstrong. We're talking about World War III starting right now, and we'd be in the middle of that by the time you come and be with us in November. Cliff High is saying that his WebBot indications and are saying that by October, the U.S. government starts to fray and starts to come apart. Of course, in November, you've got the election here with Donald Trump playing kind of a central role there. And no matter what happens, no half of the country is not going to be happy whether he gets assassinated or whether he gets elected or whether he gets put in prison. I mean, this is wild and crazy stuff, to say nothing about any kind of external or exogenous kind of things that might show up. And so it's going to be a really fun time. So, what you've been thinking about in terms of this kind of stuff.
Well, I think it's one thing I'm noticing is that there is an escalation in emotionality of events that are happening. Like, for example, like let's just take the coming days in a week, right? There's going to be an eclipse in the United States, visible in the United States. It's going to form this cross, and there's been unusual declaration of emergency warnings by certain counties in the United States and certain states. They're kind of unprecedented because, I'm asking myself, like many people, why? Like, it's an eclipse, okay? I mean, when I was
Yeah,
in school growing up, the emergency was, don't stare at the sun. It's like,
yeah, right.
so like, and I'm thinking to myself, either people have dumbed down so far that for them that's already like a state emergency, or like, of course, one of the things that I covered, I think closing last year on, I think it was with John Nolan once on a show, we talked about the possibility of a cyber attack. And there was a movie called Leaving the World, or Leave the World Behind, I believe, and it was produced by Obama's production company. So there was a lot of symbology in that film and symbolism dealing with if society is prepared, what will happen. And so, you're wondering when you hear about people saying, well, there's going to be a state of emergency during an eclipse, that, well, either they know something,
Yeah.
or they don't. But, you have to ask yourself this, John, when has the government ever really looked out for your best interests in the last 4 years that you can remember, right?
Well, it's not even the last 4 years.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm just narrowing it down to 4 years
All
because
right.
we
Yeah.
what happened 4 years ago, right? So if the government has our best interests in mind, why would they warn us? So I'm thinking I'm not really sure I'm going to pay attention to that. I almost believe that absolutely nothing is going to happen. In fact, I'm going with that because I think what's happening is that there's there's been a sort of a periodic messaging system. I don't know if you're getting it over there, but I get it over here in Europe on my handy that says, "Oh, there's an emergency. This is a test," and you get some signal, right? So you're thinking, well, what are they? Why? Like what are they preparing us for? And their intention with these signals is to prepare society for in the event that there is going to be some major something or other. We don't know what it is, right? So and all of it is serving to kind of make people feel or desensitized in a way, because every time something happens and then nothing happens, it's like there's a shock factor. And we know that emotions drive reality. That's one of the things that I was presenting last December in Arlington. I was talking about, that the science has shown us that emotions create reality because people will actually, use that information and the emotional charge they get from it to transmit that and turn it into reality by, we have these amazing mechanisms, our pineal gland, our hippocampus, all these this bio hardware which is designed for us to create and work within our reality. So I think all these events and all these signals that we're getting, maybe that is kind of what they're trying to do with it. And that's on the one hand something that I've been observing, because obviously that eclipse is around the corner. And yet on the other hand, I'm not seeing, like, we've been trying to alert people and warn people about this transhumanist agenda. We've been trying to teach people about what does it mean? How does artificial intelligence play into all of this? And you're waiting for that 100th monkey effect, right? As they call it, right? I think we talked about it just before the show today, just a little bit on how there's this, the positive aspect of people have more power than people that are locked in negativity or that are not utilizing their conscious, creative, positive abilities, right? So, what's happening is that I think I'm noticing a lot of this transhumanist agenda is not letting up, though. It isn't slowing down. If you really look at what's going on, like that World Health Organization treaty, they're trying to do an international deal right now where they're preparing people to like a fundamental pandemic agreement that every country then snaps in and goes into the dictates of the World Health Organization. And that's dangerous because it takes away the sovereignty. In America, you've got a constitution, and the people, the citizens of America are on the status of kings and queens and sovereigns, supposed to be. And there's all these statutes that have been filtered in between that power, and these World Health Organization laws would interfere with that sovereignty. So it's very dangerous. And there's been some snags on it lately, but if you look a little closer at it, the snags aren't that people are saying there's no such thing as viruses, this is all a hoax, we're not doing this pandemic thing again. No, the snags are that the pharmaceutical industries don't want to give up any of their intellectual property to the relative government. So it's always a profit, monetary, financial thing. It has nothing to do with the well-being of the citizens. And then you turned me on to something. It's all your fault, John.
Mhm.
You sent me a book called The Great Taking by a guy called David Rogers Webb. And you said, you need to check this out. And so I did. I took it seriously. Everything you send me, John, I do take it seriously because I think you're definitely on the bleeding edge as well. So I looked into it, and actually, not only is the book available to download and it's free, but he put together kind of I could say slap together as a filmmaker, a documentary, which in 1 hour just kind of, just blasts you through the essence of what that is all about. And what you get from that book, and it's brilliant. I mean, and it's scary as heck, right? Because this man, he is a hedge fund manager for major deals. He knows how it works, and he's like the guy you could say that's been put in the position of having the download from, maybe whatever you want to call them, the light forces, the cosmic, I don't really care what. I just look at it as there's the white hat team that's made up of us, the real white hats, not the white hats that are coming to save us, but the people white hats. he's the guy that's been kind of put in that position to sort of understand what that system is all about, write it all out, and even make a little documentary for us to understand what's coming. And when you look at that information that he put together in that book, and I compare it, of course, to the stuff that I've been talking about, some of the more fringe oriented things with CSRQ or something called Obsidian now, which is a group of people which are warning us about a software which is connected to your biometric ID, which is tied into programmable digital central banking currencies, which are in the pipeline. And they're talking about how this whole system's going to come crashing down. And if you listen to that information, John, and I've been reading these intel drops that they have, just kind of keeping my eye on it. I don't know how seriously I'm going to take it. I found weaknesses in it, but yet at the same time, it's part of the information flow out there. And you're reading this kind of stuff, and you're going, how are they going to bring this thing crashing down? That just doesn't make sense. It's all going to come crashing down until you read The Great Taking by David Webb. And then he lays out exactly how the thing is going to come crashing down. And so what I'm getting at here is that I'm looking at all these different facets and these different elements, the advancement of transhumanism, the World Health Organization treaties, the financial potential looming collapse that's out there. And it seems like these things are just advancing so quickly that something is going to happen. Something has to happen, right? If you listen to Whitney Webb on some of her latest videos, she's talking about the same stuff, and she's tying it into the financial sector as well. And if you listen to the slogans of the World Health, sorry, not World Health, the WEF, the other world organization, right? We all know who's heading that up. And they're talking about you will own nothing and be happy. Well, how does that work? Again, the connection was tying it into David Webb's book, The Great Taking. That's how it works, because they've basically collateralized. There's no longer a gold standard. They've now created all these derivative piles, and they've sold them off globally, and they're printing money like it's going out of fashion. And he shows some graphs in his film that talk about the speed of currency, the speed of money.
Yeah,
And he's talking
velocity.
about
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
how fast money's being printed and how fast the value is sinking. And if you look at that graph, it's so scary, because you see that we far surpassed two of the major crises that we had in the 20th century by more than double.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to ask yourself, what is keeping the bubble? And so if you're looking at how it would come crashing down, there would have to be some kind of an event. So again, you've got this eclipse happening, this state of emergency happening, but it's all a misleader. And if it does
Yeah.
come crashing down, who would be the ones taking control? And the other thing he talks about in his book is these simulations that they're working on right now. They're working on these simulations that are about transfer of the wealth after it crashes. And so the slogan, you will own nothing and be happy, ties directly into that, because what he shows clearly in his book is that even if you've gone to the bank and you've gotten a loan and you have a car and you think the car is yours, and when the dealer goes bankrupt, guess what? The car, even if you've paid it off, okay, somebody will come to your house and will take your car, and you'll be going, wait a minute, I paid this off. And then they'll tell you, no, sorry, the dealer collateralized your car against a collateral derivatives pool, which is again collateralized by another derivatives pool. And essentially it goes all the way up to these big non-failed banks. And that's what these simulations that they're doing are all about, transferring this pool of these collected assets and converting your status as a creditor into meaningless contracts that you can stand in line and join the thousands of others who have a piece of paper that says they own something instead of something real. So all these things are falling into place. They're all out there, and there's nobody really screaming big about them, right? I mean, one of the latest things I just got, and I'll stop with my rant after that, is that, I've been following the work of David Nixon, and David Nixon's doing valuable work doing dark field microscopy, studying the blood of people that are, exposed to those ingredients, which we all know were part of the beetle juice. And he's showing some alarming developments with respect to what is happening inside of the human blood cell and the genome. That is not letting up either. That's only been advancing for the last 6 months that he's been talking about it. It's been getting worse and worse. Again, who is talking about this, right? So these are the things that we should be talking about, but instead what are we talking about? Potential World War III. There's a convenient, a brewing, escalated World War III trigger in the Gaza with Israel, right? You've got a lot of anti-Semitism on the rise because people are realizing whenever there's these major conflicts, there's always seems to be this Jewish influence. And so you've got people like Ye and who's the other one, Candace Owens, who recently were saying, anti-Semitic things, right? And she even had some rabbis on talking about it and defining what it means. And all these things you're asking yourself, well, it's all coming out. Like, where is this leading? Is this really the end of the world, right? That's kind of what I've been observing in the last few weeks and
Well,
months.
it is the end of the world as we've known it, and as we've understood it, and as we all kind of grew up in it. And that's what's so interesting and fascinating about this period of time is what you're seeing is the collapse, the implosion of the existing system that has supported human endeavors and activities for so long. And across almost any sector that you look at, science, medicine, education, to energy, you name it. And so there are any number of these kind of failure modes and at different kind of levels that are some of the things that you've talked about, and then you go all the way up to kind of planetary stuff like rapid climate change to where it would get cold in a hurry and so on. And so you layer these all things up, and you get if you get buried into that, it's an interesting kind of paradox, and that is on one hand, you really don't want to be ignorant about any of these kinds of things, because if you're ignorant and you get big changes and you don't understand them or haven't thought about them, then they generate surprise and big surprise, and then it generates fear. On the other hand, you can't get yourself emotionally attached to all that, because what you got to realize is out of the back end of all of this is the emergence of a new world and a new human for that matter. And I've been reading some old Barbara Marciniak books that are channelings about the Pleiadians, and they're very explicit, back then in the 90s, talking about the fact is that you got to go through all of this process, and but you got to realize that this implosion generates the vacuum that allows for the emergence of this new world. And there is a new world and a new human that's just going to come out of the back end of this thing. And so on one hand, you got to balance. So you got to be in the world and have some sense about what's going on, so that you don't get surprised and that you can be prepared. And at the same time, you got to get focused outside of this world toward a new world, toward a new where we're going, and how we can all get together and we can build this, and we can design and ultimately build this new world, because humanity can do that for the first time. Never before in history have we had the kind of perspective and technology and information and other kinds of things that allow us to have this comprehensive picture about what's coming downstream and the possibilities, not only what's coming downstream in conventional terms, but the possibilities of this kind of expanded awareness of reality and ourselves and science and everything else that is so much bigger. And so it's going to be a very, very interesting time. There are, indications that suggesting that, it all starts to come apart in a big way. Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum has been talking for years now about having the collapse of the grid and the IT system and the internet and so on. And you got to ask yourself, why in the world do they want to do? Who would want to do that? Why would they do that? And that then raises some other questions that we're going to talk about at Transition Talks in the talk that I give in August about what's the driving force behind this thing. Is it on planet or is it off planet, or what is this? Because it doesn't make sense in conventional kind of terms. And just to end my rant, what this really needs is this is an opportunity for us all to rise to the occasion. And this is really the kind of the crucible, if you will, that gives everybody a chance to become somebody new and somebody better, and learn in new ways how to deal with this extraordinary kind of transition, and position ourselves so that we can be the denizens, the designers of this new world that shows up. And that is frankly pretty exciting to me.
Yeah, they're exciting times. There's no doubt about it. And the question always is, how much energy should we devote toward trying to fix the problem, right? Because there's an argument you could say that all this negative stuff going on around serves to give us the feeling of apathy, like, oh, it's too late, we can't change it anyway. That this is an argument that I hear a lot from, like, even my in-laws, for example. They'll just say, oh, like, why are you into all this stuff? Like, you can't change it. It's not gonna, it's the way it is. And there's that kind of, you have to think about that. Like, are they right, or are they symbolizing, an aspect of, like, it is too late because it's so broken, we can't fix it?
Mm.
But then you have people like David Webb writing books that are saying, look, you can fix it. It isn't hopeless. It's just you have to understand where it's broken. And if you understand where it's broken, you can take back that power you lost, because other people have made use of mechanisms which are in and around us in society to change, to codify laws, quote unquote, right? Because we can always change the law as well, because these are codified. These aren't like, like constitutional oriented, like, things. These are codified law, statutory laws, which you can change and adapt, and you can take control of that. So there's that as well. So, a part of that is also learning in terms of, if we're talking about creating a new world, on the one hand, we have to realize that we're not just matter. We're not just, these like hunks of meat, literally. Like the atheists would have us believe it all happened by accident. Molecules and atoms crash together for eternity until one day, boom, there's humans, and it all was an accident, right? As opposed to the idea that there actually is an intelligent design. And the more we look at science, the more we realize that there is an intelligent design to the whole thing. So part of the making people aware of the intelligent design part is to give them the feeling of, to eliminate the feeling of hopelessness. In other
That's
words, to
right.
make them aware that they are creator beings, that all of us are creator beings, and all of us have way more power to create
Right.
than we would even believe we do, because we're so amazing at creating that even we can even create all the negative stuff. And so that part of, I think, what is involved is to identify the things that are going wrong. Maybe we can't fix them. I don't know. I guess it depends on if there's this critical mass and it does get fixed. But maybe possibly the other part of it is learning to identify what has gone wrong, so that when we do enter this new world, where whichever form it takes, that we can learn from the mistakes of the old world and don't bring those old patterns and wrongly executed emotional streams back into the new world.
All right.
And of course, the idea of this otherworldly or extraterrestrial influence is something I've been talking about as well. In fact, the film that we're going to be presenting in June is called The Extraterrestrial Species Almanac. So we're going to be talking about all these different species. I'm not the director. I just produced it and edited it. It's based on a book, and whether you believe it or not, that there's all these different species, the message that emerges from the people who are in the film is that there is another kind of an order, whether it's a physical order or whether it's an astral existence, that seems to have a play in what's going on in the world right now. And I can't imagine, John, that all of this going on around us, all this realization that we're having, and in whatever form it takes, also technology, but also mental awarenesses and realizations, is for naught. I think there has to be a meaning to all of this that isn't purely negative, that isn't evil. And maybe the evil is only there to push us against the wall to realize who we really are. So I think maybe part of it is getting pushed up against the wall, and that's the other aspect, so that we get triggered, so that we do realize, who we are, damn it, like we are these powerful creator beings, and like it's time for us to step into who we really truly are. And so, you could look at all these events that are going on around us as absolute dark and evil, and there certainly is a lot of indication that they are. And the dark side, if you want to call them that, is far more organized than the light side, in terms of like people that are into disclosure and consciousness. They're usually on a grassroots level. They're not meeting in top hotels and flying there in their own private
Right.
jets and eating caviar and drinking champagne with thousands of other delegates. No, they're scraping it together on non-budgets to try and preserve this information, this knowledge, and to hold the frequency. And I think frequency for me has also become kind of a key word, um, because I think we have to step out of the idea of seeing ourselves as, like I was saying, lumps of matter and just sacks of meat and bones, and realize that we are these frequency generators. Everything in our body communicates through frequency.
Yeah.
And understanding that is a way, I think, to help overcome and to not go into fear, so that whenever this transition happens, through whatever means, if it's a triggered war, if it's a financial collapse, nobody can identify that, because obviously we're not playing in that league or in that circle of people. We feel it. I think we can sense it. But the most important thing is to remain calm when that happens, to be prepared to a certain degree. It's not a stupid idea to stash a month of supply of food, or
No,
even if
no,
it's just a bag of rice and some
of course.
water, just to have it so you don't have to go into panic mode immediately. In fact, it might
Yeah.
be nice. And I remember when COVID and lockdowns happened and everything was shut down, it was actually very peaceful, and
Right.
we saw how quickly the environment rebounded. So we should know that it's not necessarily going to have to be something that's really dark and really negative when it does happen.
No, it doesn't at all. But it certainly is helpful to have thought a little bit about what might happen, and like you say, prepare, but also have a fixation, as I say again, on what might come out of this and how we can prepare, essentially begin the process of thinking about what a new world might be, and how we can, because I would argue that the present situation is unsustainable, structurally unsustainable. And so we really need to start pointing toward the future. And that's part of what we're going to talk about when you come here to be with us in November. And we're very much looking forward to that. For those who are watching, you can find out all about that at TransitionTalks.org. And we encourage you to come and be with us. Frank will be with us all day on that Saturday, and it'll be live streamed as well. And so it doesn't make any difference where in the world that you can be. So it's really been great to talk to you, and like nice to see you again. And we're very much looking forward to having you with us. And we'll wait and see what's going to happen, because I think that the time between now and then is going to be just really seminal in terms of who we all are as humans and in general, and certainly in this country as well.
Absolutely. I think we're heading into the next 1 or 2 years of, well, I think this transition is going to take place because, as you said, the key word, it's unsustainable the way it is now. Even, if it's from a environmental position, okay, yeah, you could say it's unsustainable, but I think from a mental, sentient consciousness level, it's unsustainable, because people are waking up, and there's this process going on in the world where, we are the sum of the parts of the whole. And all of us and every one of us that wakes up sends a little signal to that whole that is waking up and realizing, okay, this can't go on. We need to see this fixed. We need to change it. And maybe this is why we came here.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's certainly in my case, that's what I decided. So thanks, Frank Jacob. And we'll put information about what people can contact you below, and keep up with you, because you're doing some very interesting work, and we're excited about it all. So thanks so much, and take care, my friend.
Thanks, John. My pleasure. Look forward to November.